Welcome to the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. I am your host, Rabanzo. This podcast features conversations with me and indie music artists and industry professionals. It's all intended to help other indie music artists be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love, make music. Almost got it. Hey, would you like to help other independent musicians find this podcast? All you have to do is subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcast service. It really does help. The Unstarving Musician is made possible, by the way, through the generosity of listeners like you. And one of the easiest ways you can offer your support is to join the community at unstarvingmusician.com. In doing so, you'll get tips and insights you can use in your music journey, but not just from me and my years of experience. It also comes from the insights of hundreds of other musicians I've talked to as part of the Unstarving Musician Project and podcast. Plus, you get a free copy of the Unstarving Musicians Guide official ebook. It's all for free just for being part of the community. There are other ways that you can support the community. And if I may ask you, please go to our sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn how you can help me keep this podcast going for free. My guest for this episode is Raf Fiol of Kompoz, the online collaboration platform. It is another multi-part episode covering, this time, the online collaboration space. Kind of a shorter episode here today, as will be the others for this mini-series. I'm trying to understand the space and the different approaches to it, different markets, and the trends. I'm super fascinated with it. I'm actually a Kompoz user member. It's pretty cool. I need to make the time to submit some tracks. There's a track I'm super interested in. I've just been sort of immersed in some other tracks I'm working on, and of course the podcast, this, that, and the other thing. But anyway, it's coming, man. Like everything else. Hey, listen, do you have your artist or band website in order? Are you happy with it? If not, I want you to check out Bandzoogle. It's the easiest all-in-one professional website platform for musicians and bands. And why do I care? Why should you care? Because there are two things that will help ensure you're in control of your music business and your fan-based community. They are a solid website and an email list. Bandzoogle can help you with both. What do you think podcasters, PR management, labels, venues all look at? Sure, they look at your social media when they consider you, but they know you're truly serious about your music and the business of your music when you have a solid website. So if you don't yet have your own website, or you're not happy with the one you do have, go to bandzoogle.com to start a 30-day free trial. Use the promo code Rabanzo to get 15% off your first year. Plans start at just $8.29 a month. It's super easy to use. You don't have to worry about plugins or security updates. You're like, what is that? I know, right? That's what I'm saying. You don't have to worry about it. Bandzoogle takes care of that for you. I use it myself. I love it. See for yourself at rabanzo.com. But check it out for yourself. Go to bandzoogle.com. Use the promo code Rabanzo, ROBONZO, to start your free trial today. So my guest, Raf, yes, he started this site, Kompoz, the online collaboration platform. It's kind of an online social mediaized collaboration platform. They started around 2007, and we talk about how he's seen some things come and go in the space. The cool thing about it, I think, so far is that, and we talk about this, is that they're digital audio workstation agnostic, DAW agnostic, so they let you use whatever you want. They're very focused on the social aspect. That's just something that has kind of evolved, I think, you'll find. They have like 80,000 collaborations started on the platform, 500,000 tracks uploaded. I think he talks about how many users they have too. I just didn't note it here for this introduction, but it has evolved into a community that's got to focus on new talent, onboarding that new talent, because that's what makes them thrive. I also wanted to know if he had any predictions for the online collaboration space, and I asked him about crowdsourcing talent, which is another facet of the online collaboration space that I have seen, and how that fits into Kompoz. Doesn't really, but not today. Um, so the reason he started Compose is a pretty classic story. He found a solution out there back in 2007, but it wasn't quite right. It didn't work as well as he wished it did. So yeah, he built his own thing, and he tells me he loves seeing what new songs have been created in the morning when he logs in. It just trips him out. Like these are these created between people who've never been in the same room together, and yeah, he gets off on that. I asked him why indie artists would want to try it. 'Cause I think my experience has been that not a lot of you have. So we talk about that, and also for you other drummers and you other vocalists, they are the most in demand talent on Compose. So maybe you want to check it out for that reason. Yeah, we talk about the profile of the people that use it. It's not something you're going to do just from your iPhone. You have to be somebody who's into recording, a little bit techie, I guess. But yeah, I think it's worth checking out, and it's you can learn more about it. I'll put this in the show notes, but it's compose.com, KOMPOZ.com. All right, that's enough. Here is me and Raf Fiol of Kompoz. Yeah, why not start with you telling me what feels different about what Compose does, given that there are some others in the space doing some similar stuff, but yeah, what do you guys do different?
Well, we've been around for a long time. We started back in 2007 is when we first launched, and I've seen quite a few sites come and go
Mm-hmm.
during that time period. And I think what we do differently, and the reason we've been around as long as we have, is that we really kind of let the users, our members, use whatever recording software they want. And people
Yeah.
are comfortable with Apple Logic or GarageBand or Pro Tools or whatever it is they like, and they spend a lot of time learning the tools and how to best tweak their sounds using those tools. And I've seen some of the other sites that try to create their own sort of DAWs online, or you sort of record and mix online, or use their apps, and that doesn't work. It just everyone wants to use their tools. So what we've really focused on is the networking component, the social networking pieces,
Yeah.
and connecting musicians. So
Okay.
come to our site, use whatever DAW you want. You upload your tracks into our projects, our collaborations is what we call them.
Mm-hmm.
You create split sheets with the other artists. You can talk about your I guess your song split sheets, right? Um, and you just kind of create songs together online. We've had over 100,000 registrations. There are about 80,000 collaborations that have been started,
Wow.
and yeah, about 500,000 tracks that have been uploaded. It's really kind of cool. I think the other nice thing is that we have this feature called a spin-off, which is, I mean, think about it. Like, this has happened to me a couple of times. I'll start a project with a thought in mind of what it's going to sound like.
Mm-hmm.
I'll record a guitar piece and upload it. Somebody downloads that, brings it into their studio, and starts just going in a completely different direction, and then uploads that as a spin-off. And I'm like, wow, that is really cool. I've seen songs go from rock to reggae to country, and all around. And it's really exciting to see that exploration happen.
That's interesting. And I'm glad you brought up the thing about the cloud-based DAWs. Um, Given that you've stayed away from it, I don't know how you probably do know more than I would even expect, but what are you seeing any as an observer, mostly since you don't do that and stayed DAW agnostic,
Right.
what do you see room for that? Are there people that actually like that? Like perhaps the ones that, like I've seen them pitched as a place where people who want to try their hand at putting a track together without investing in software. And I don't know if that really holds true or not, but what do you observe?
I think it really depends on your goals as a musician. Some of the musicians that come to the site simply just want to explore, use samples, use loops, whatever, and try to kind of using beats put something together. That's really not where we focus. We really are targeting more the musicians who want to create new original music. They tend to be a little bit, they skew a little bit older in terms of demographics, and more traditional, I should say. Maybe older is not the right word, but more traditional. real instruments, and they're really into the mixing and engineering aspect of the music creation.
Yeah,
So I think
sure.
that's why they really like their own DAWs.
Okay.
Where I do think there is an opportunity is, and we've explored this very lightly, is that to have a maybe a plugin for the different DAWs that would allow you to import it and export directly to Compose. I think that would be a really valuable tool. But I
Is
certainly don't want to try to replace all of the, just the magic that happens with some of the technology that's out there.
so I'm a little new to, recording at home and using a decent DAW. Does that mean when you mention the plugins, does that mean this is my WordPress designer brain, but does that mean that you guys would get into developing your own plugins for artists to use in their preferred DAW that you guys would market?
Exactly. We actually did build, and we do have on the website a desktop application for uploading and downloading the tracks. It's for Windows and Mac, and that does make it a lot easier. I should say faster, because it organizes your tracks for you. It pulls them down off of Compose and stores them on your local file system, where you can go to, Dropbox or anything like that. But I think the next step would be to actually have it so that, let's say if I'm in GarageBand or if I'm in Apple Logic and I just press a button that says export this to Compose, that would be a really cool feature to have. So we're looking into that. Where I do see, like, when we started, there was really only one other major site out there. It's called Indaba Music,
Hmm.
and they pivoted. They got more into contests and remix contests,
Okay.
and they moved away from creating new original music. And they've since, I think they've been acquired by somebody else, Splice. They got acquired by a company called Splice.com that kind of went back to collaboration, but it was very specific to a certain number of DAWs. And instead of trading tracks, you'd be actually exchanging projects with other members. So it was
Okay.
a little bit different from ours. Most recently, actually, Spotify has entered into the space,
I saw
and
that.
they've got a product called Soundtrap. Um, Again, they went towards the complete online, DAW concept. And I think they're really kind of going after a much larger mass audience that really wants to get in, because you can download loops and you can download samples and kind of mix that way. And you're recording directly into your browser.
Yeah,
I've
interesting.
tried it. It's interesting, but again, there are a lot of limitations. I've gotten to the point where now with my DAW, again, I use Apple Logic, is that there's just so many great tools in there with their ability to actually move notes around and cut and paste and do the vocal tuning and all of those types of things, that where you can take multiple comps of your tracks and kind of pick the best of each one. It's just amazing stuff, and I don't think they'll ever be able to compare with that or compete with that.
Yeah, maybe we'll see cloud hybrids in the future that kind of keep up. But then, unfortunately, we get into subscription models for every DAW you want to be involved with.
Exactly.
What changes have you seen in the use of your own platform that have most caught your attention?
Um, Good question. Changes that I've seen. It's interesting, because when the site started, it was really focused on, hey, let's create songs together. And I think more recently, obviously that's still the central goal, but there's really been this kind of sense of community where everybody's helping everybody else. They sort of really look for new, fresh talent as new members join the site. There's a group of members that really kind of focus on onboarding them and helping them kind of get started.
That's nice.
And it's kind of really become it's and you'll see this in the new version of Compose that I'm actually launching, is that there is the studio aspects where you're actually collaborating and mixing songs together,
Hmm.
and then there's the community aspect where you're sharing your results and what you've learned. And there are all sorts of user groups that have started within the Compose community section for specializations, like vocalist groups, drum groups, bass groups, things like that. So I would say that the sense of community and sharing of data is very interesting to me, the way that's evolved.
Nice. It's intriguing to think, and it makes a lot of sense. When you look at any robust community, they have these aspects, and as a musician who's done most of my stuff in the offline world, other than finding people and posting stuff online, it's interesting to think of having all that out there. Very appealing. Do you have any predictions for the future of online collaboration?
Predictions for the future. I wish I did. I would certainly, where we are, and I think I just mentioned this, I'm on version 3.0 now of the platform. We're doing a rewrite of the front end and focusing more on privatization of the actual collaboration experience. Whereas today on Compose, you can create private projects, but then you miss out on the whole community aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this concept of public and private today. In the future, I'm sort of moving away from the concept of public and private collaborations and creating this concept of projects that are these spaces where you can work together with people. But then what becomes public are your requests for tracks. I'm calling them track requests. So for example, if I'm looking for a drummer, I'll post a drum request on the site. That's what gets searched. That's what's public. That's what gets explored. And you can limit what's exposed at that point. You can say, you know what, I'm looking for a drummer. Here's a rough mix. I'm not going to expose all of my individual tracks because I don't really want those out in the public domain yet. But here's a rough mix that I want you to record your drums again. And then if the drummer is accepted into the project, then you would have access to the full project aspect. So it's sort of a hybrid of where we are today, and really kind of focusing on moving more towards helping out the more serious musicians who want to kind of keep their individual tracks out of public domain and work privately with other individuals, but still maintaining that collaboration aspect.
Okay. What about, I wanted to ask about the, musician for hire aspect of the whole crowdsourcing thing that happens. Is that, and has that always been a pretty big part of the ecosystem?
Not for us. We actually did an experiment. We launched a sister site called Compose Studio,
mm-hmm.
which was exactly that. It was a for hire kind of platform
mm-hmm.
where you post your gigs and a bounty is what we called it.
Okay.
Hey, $50 for a guitar player that would record a 30-second solo, that kind of deal. And initially it was well received, but we've seen that the demand for that has really just kind of tapered off. So I think we're going to scrap that. I learned a lot from it. It certainly is a powerful motivator if you definitely need, you can't find, let's say, the talent through the regular Compose channels, then adding money to that certainly does close the job. I don't think there was ever a gig that went unfinished on Compose Studio. But it changed the dynamic so dramatically
mm-hmm.
that I don't think it was good for our community and our platform. Because once you introduce money into the equation, you're no longer creating music for the love or the art, and it's become a business, and the dynamics change, and it's just becomes it's a different animal. That's not where we want to be.
Yeah.
Having said that, we are having, in the new 3.0 platform, there is a gamification aspect,
mm-hmm.
so that when you do post a request, let's say for a drummer, I'll keep using that example since that's what you play, you can earn points and other things by performing those types of any activity that's valuable to the community. You'll earn points for,
mm-hmm.
and that will increase your ability to attract other musicians to work on your project. So there's like this little market that's created using a point system that and badges and whatnot that we hope will drive engagement.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, I think strictly from the aspect of allowing people to be noticed as popular contributors, or just contributors, like strong contributors who are helping the community in some way, different ways. I think that would do a lot. So that's exciting.
We're excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah. For my podcast listeners, can you share the story, the brief story of why you were passionate about doing Kompoz, getting it going, and what have you discovered along the way that surprised you, if anything?
Okay. Yeah. So when I first got the idea, again, this was back in 2007. There was a site at the time called myvirtualband.com, and it was essentially just like a forum where it had threaded discussions, and people were attaching MP3 files and say, "Hey, can you add a drum track to this MP3 file?" And I saw that, and I experimented with it for a little bit. I kind of loved the concept, but it became very difficult to follow a song through to completion when you're using a forum system, right? Because you got all these threads, and
Mm,
it's hard to keep track of all the files that are involved because they're scattered across multiple messages and comments and whatnot.
sure.
So I just got the idea of, hey, let's make it more project based, and created the site at that point, and did it for fun. Really, it was just a side project that I was working on. Launched it, and it grew pretty quickly. I think we had probably by the end of the first 6 months, there were like, yeah, maybe 10,000 people that had signed up and were using the site, and we were just having a great time with it. And then in 2014, a gentleman out of New York contacted me, and he wanted to invest in the site. So he did that, and we hired some folks, and we launched the next version of the platform. And it just kind of continues to grow, and it's just super fun, super exciting. I love waking up in the morning,
Hmm.
cranking up Compose, and see what new songs have been created, and
Yeah.
just to think that, hey, these guys have never really been in the same room together,
Yeah.
and they're creating these songs from across the world. It's just awesome.
Well, it's
There's no
definitely
politics. There's no none of that's allowed on the site. We're just there to make music. It's a blast.
that's nice, and it's a new world to me. And I was going to say that the most of the interviews I do for the Unstarving Musician are independent artists, and it may be my impression and nothing more and inaccurate, but my impression is that a lot of them have never tried something like this.
Yeah,
Why would they want to, and how would they know if maybe it's not for them?
yeah. Um, Good question. And I've tried to get a lot of my local buddies, who are musicians, to use the site, and they do because they know me and they want to,
Yeah,
support me.
yeah,
But a lot of them, it's just not for them, and I think it's because that they're very protective of their music, and they're afraid it's going to get ripped off, and just the internet's going to swallow them whole.
mhm,
For others, it's such a great experience to be able to finish that song that's been in your head for years, and it's hard to sometimes find a violin player, or somebody who plays the oboe, or these really weird esoteric sort of instruments. They're all on Compose. It's amazing. You just kind of post it and say, hey, I'm looking for somebody who can play a triangle, and you'll get multiple people submitting to your projects. And for me, that's the coolest part of it. It's that, and again, like I mentioned earlier, it's the thought process that you go into it with is, I've got this song in my head, but somebody else has a different sort of spin on it, and a lot of times it's a lot better than what you had in your head. And
sure.
to let it sort of grow and explore from there is really exciting.
Yeah, and I would imagine the sort of loose connection with people that you get in the beginning, especially on a social network, allows
Right.
people to be a little more forward with their ideas. In some
Yeah.
cases, because sometimes our friends are they sort of tippy toe because they're not really sure what we can handle in terms of making
Yeah.
suggestions or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
And the other aspect is that there is a little bit of technical know-how that you have to make this really work right.
sure,
You have to have some gear at home. You've got to have a nice laptop or a computer. I use this Focusrite digital audio interface that I can plug my guitars into directly, and my mics and everything else. And you got to have something like that. You got to have some recording software. And then, with online collaboration, there is also this, it's very important to make sure that your tracks line up correctly, right?
yeah,
Because timing is critical. When you lay down your drum beat, I've got to make sure that when I bring that into my project, it's timed correctly with the other instruments. So, we use this concept, we call it sync tones, where we just kind of put an artificial sometimes it's a drum hit, a cymbal crash or something in the beginning, and everybody kind of aligns to that and record from there. So there's a little bit of technical geekiness that you have to have, and maybe not
Sure.
all musicians are into that.
No, that's for sure. That is for sure. I mean, I guess I'm real curious, and I'm going to start asking about. But a lot of the people I speak with and meet, a good number of them are pretty young and sort of immersed in this tech world. So it'll be interesting to know. But not everybody's been recording, and myself included. I just kind of jumped into it recently. So I look forward to checking it out. On a personal note, where are you located?
Miami, Florida.
Okay. How are things going there?
Things are going okay. You're in California?
No, I was for 17 years. My wife and I moved to Panama in 2016. So
Oh,
we're in a very surreal, strict quarantine and curfew situation that led up for 1 week, and then kind of what we're seeing around the world. There were
yeah,
case spikes, and so we're back,
yeah.
back under
Yeah,
quarantine.
Florida just opened up last week, and we're
Mhm.
expecting some big spikes. I'm sure there will be,
Yeah,
and we're still trying to be very careful, at least in this household.
for
So,
sure. Well, I wish you and all of the viewers the best and staying healthy, especially. And I guess I should ask: is there anything you wanted to know from me about anything, podcast or otherwise?
yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're doing and the projects that you've been working on, the podcast and anything else.
Sure. Yeah, the podcast is a passion project. It started with an idea for a book, which I'm working on a second edition of, and it was just to help musicians get better gigs, better paying gigs, which was something that I was pretty adept at just as a part-time musician. And then I started contemplating, distributing that knowledge and maybe curating expertise from others about areas that I knew nothing about to help the independent music artists. So, it led to a podcast, and I have immensely enjoyed a couple things. The art of the interview, and the other one is meeting all these great people
Right.
and hearing about the things that they've gone through. The stuff that works, the stuff that doesn't work, and they're all very supportive of the idea of helping one another. So that's been a lot of fun. And then um, I moving here to Panama, I moved myself to a completely new community for musicians, and it's not we don't live in we no longer live in like an urban or suburban area, so it's a lot thinner. There are a lot less musicians, and we're all farther spread apart. But the one thing, like for most people, that the pandemic has done is it had me go, you know what, I want to write that song, try and write that song I was thinking about, and
Yeah.
so that part's done, and now I'm recording it and thinking about a lot of doing a lot of things online that I've been wanting to do. So I guess that's been an upside.
And is drumming your primary instrument?
Yeah, and it's funny, to write the song, I picked a guitar back up after at least 20 years away from it. A friend had given me an acoustic here recently, and so I started playing. The band I recently got together with was letting me play a couple of acoustic tunes on stage in part of our
Nice.
set, and yeah, and so I had gotten comfortable enough to kick out a melody and ask a friend what he thought, and I was lucky enough that someone I really respect musically, liked it, and he's helping me with some of the recording aspects. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah, it's
And
fun.
are you able to record your drums? Do you have some some tools for doing that?
Yeah, so I had to go buy some tools. I had to go buy a Focusrite interface that had enough channels to
Yeah.
help me record drums, and I bought some mics. I don't have terribly expensive overheads. That would have been a big deal, but I've shared it with people who have a breadth of recording experience, and 1 out of 3 was like, you really need some better overheads, and the other 2 were like, it sounds good, it sounds good. So
Yeah.
I guess I've been
Awesome.
trying to use that. The best mics to record with are the ones you have. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
yeah, so
Yeah, I
yeah,
think drummers have it the hardest, right? Because you got probably like 8 mics all set up and
mm.
recording your stuff, and then you gotta put it all together and yeah.
Yeah, and from a learning perspective, I think it's at least in my head, it's kind of a lot to deal with. But I have just focused on trying to get the best raw sound that I can, and because fortunately I have other people who are way ahead of me on the curve who can help out with mixing and mastering and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's the other cool thing about Compose too, right? Is that you just upload your raw files, and there's always somebody on there that'll mix and master for you.
Yeah, that's cool.
Drummers and vocalists are the ones that are most in demand on our site.
I got to get on
Drummers,
there.
yeah, drummers, because like I said, you've got the hardest job in terms of recording. You've got it's the hardest piece of it, and then vocalists, just finding a great vocalist is really, really rare. So
Yeah.
they're in high demand on the site.
Well, I will share that with my community. It's one thing I've met is a lot of outstanding vocalists, and a few really good drummers too. I just, only by virtue of the fact that I talk to more vocalists than I do pure drummers, but really appreciate your time a lot.
No, thank you. I really appreciate you talking to me. And if there's anything that comes up later, if you have any questions, just shoot me an email or
All right,
text me.
man. Thank you.
All right.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Stay safe.
You too. This episode was powered by ConvertKit, which is more than just an email marketing company. ConvertKit is focused on landing pages too, giving beginner creators everything they need to start building their email lists. I've been using ConvertKit since early 2016 and I love it. Their new free plan allows creators to make unlimited landing pages and forms. You can choose from multiple templates, add personalization and design, and much, much more. The support is great, which is super important. You can learn more about ConvertKit and how they can help you connect with your audience so you can make a living doing the work you love by going to unstarvingmusician.com/convert or the show notes for this episode. Hey, thanks for listening. If you have feedback, comments, suggestions, or questions about the podcast, my guests, me, visit unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. You can leave me a quick voicemail right there on that page, right from your browser. All my other contact info is there too, and I would love to hear from you. You can find links, by the way, for just about everything mentioned in this episode in the show notes at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Thank you again for listening. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you sharing it with your musician friends and fellow indie music fans. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.